7th of June, when we're developing the research proposal and the chapters on a weekly basis. So every Saturday at 10 a.m. we meet and we work on a different section of the dissertation or proposal where we demonstrate practical ways of using AI in developing that which you are set to develop. So thank you so much for joining us. We are starting now. We are also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. You can share with your friends, your colleagues, and your classmates. Right. These workshops are specifically for academics, researchers, and postgraduate students. But today's one is specifically for your honors, masters, and PhDs who want to develop their topics, the research gaps, research questions, and the like. So the presentation is structured in two ways. Can you please mute? The presentation is structured in two sections, in two parts, right? The first one is a very quick and brief PowerPoint presentation. After that, then we look at what the practical demonstration of using AI. I want to re-emphasize that our presentations are specifically guided by the University Ethics on AI and the National Framework of AI. So we do not condone plagiarism. We do not condone copying and paste. Everything that we produce from or the outputs from AI, we ensure that human judgment still prevails and it's verified, the information is verified before it is cascaded to the examiner or to the journal. So I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. When we're done the first presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, we're going to move to the practical demonstration where I will introduce generative AI. Then after that, we'll open up for questions and answers session. All right, then we take it from there. Right, so first things first. Colleagues, please confirm if my screen is showing and if everything is fine.
Yes, Doc, everything is fine.
All right, good. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
Doc, everything's good.
All right, it's confirmed already. So let's now begin. Right, so we said research webinar series hosting every Saturdays at 10 a.m. Every Saturday at 10 a.m. So yes, 10 to 11. So we started the first session on the 27th of January. Now we are on the 31st of January as we proceed. All right. So my name is Dr. Tegere P. Moringa. I'm a founding member of the AfriLeader AI organization. You can check our website that specifically deals with research and implementation of AI within the various aspects. And I specifically focus with AI within the higher education sector and within the journalism sector. Those are my key strengths. So anything to do with that. But mostly this presentation, the series is for people within the academic space. So my background is that I participated in the development of the UKZN AI policy. I'm a former member of the UKZN AI Task Force. I've advised deans and academic leaders on AI ethics in thesis examination, right, in various institutions, including DUT, UKZN, and another institution, in Mancos as well. To date, I've trained more than 600 academics and researchers on the ethics of AI and practical use of AI. So our current work now, we are working on developing an AI platform that streamlines the qualitative research process where you simply need to generate your interview guide, then the platform or the robot will take care of everything and do the interviews for you and do the follow-ups, transcribe, convert the themes, generate themes, codes, and what you simply need to do is to download the final report of themes and verbatims before you begin your analysis. So that's what we're working on currently at AfriLeader AI, developing that platform that will allow qualitative researchers to sit back, relax, and get the robot to do the data collection and analysis for them before they convert that into meaningful insights to inform policy and all that. So today's session, basically, we are moving from scoping review to research gaps, using AI to develop postgraduate research topics, gaps, problem statement, research questions, and the like, right? So we'll be doing a practical demonstration of developing these right within the parameters of what is acceptable and what is ethical, within the higher education space. I know most students, they just go to generative AI and say, yeah, generate for me a topic or a title about A, B, C, D. Then the topic comes and they take it and put it and say, this is my topic. And our experience is that most students have found it very difficult to explain and defend those topics, because those topics are just coming out from the blue, where they do not have the human engagement with the generative AI. So we're going to train you and teach you and show you ways to avert and circumvent all that, right, as we proceed. Right, so here's what we will demonstrate today. Number one, we'll demonstrate for you the prompts sheet for developing topics, gaps, questions, and objectives. We'll show you how to define a broad area. We'll show you how to do a rapid AI-assisted scoping review, very important for topic development and identifying gaps. Will assist you to identify geographical or temporal coverage of the study that you're looking at, to identify methodological and theoretical saturation, and identify gaps, right? Developing a research problem and developing topics, questions, and objectives. So that's the purpose of today's presentation, and that's what we're going to do. So we're saying first things first, before you go to a generative AI, like we'll demonstrate to you, and punch to say, I want a topic on A, the first thing that you need to do is to define your broad area, right? You need to know what you're interested in as a researcher. What am I interested in as a researcher, right? That's very important. You need to know what you're interested in as a researcher. So in this particular case, you're saying, I'm interested in the broad research area of, right? So before we get to the generative AI, one thing that I want you to bear in mind is that you need to know what you're interested in. So my research area is, I'm interested in how the media report on women politicians in Southern Africa, right, and Sub-Saharan Africa. That's my research area. That's my broad area that I'm interested in. But now I do not know what has been researched. I don't have a topic. So one thing that I want you to bear in mind is that having a research area or research interest is different from having a topic and a title. Right. So those two are different. So you don't have a topic, you don't have a title, you just have an area of interest. And area of interest is fluid, especially when you're at a master's, honors master's level. But as you get to PhD, you need to have a defined area that you know that this is my kind of research that I'm focusing on. Right. So after the research area, you need to conduct what we regard to as a rapid AI-assisted scoping review. Right. So this is where we introducing your generative AI, your ChatGPT. Right. So here, what we need to identify, we need to know what is already out there. Right. So for us to understand what is already out there, we need to do a quick scoping review. I know the word scoping review is scary to most people because literature reviews and scoping reviews are one of the most toughest and difficult things that researchers do, and it's a turn off for most, especially honors and master students, because they struggle with literature reviews. So we need to do a quick scoping review, right? That enables us to map the breadth, the depth, and the contours of existing scholarship. And here we're going to introduce Google Scholar, right? So that we can structure our scoping review through a research or citations or literature that we are going to provide the generative AI instead of us relying on it, because in some cases it might hallucinate, right? So we need to identify genuine research gaps and avoid redundancy. That's why we must do this scoping review before we get to the topic, right? We need a scoping review also to assist in evaluating whether a potential topic is practically and methodologically feasible. More often than not, you come up with the topic that you come up with, right? And you cannot defend the topic because your supervisor is asking you, what really do you want to do about this topic? Right. And that's the challenge that we're finding these days because of generative AI. It's being used unethically. You just punch in the few words, then the topic comes out. Right. And so the scoping review that we're going to do in this particular presentation will assist you in evaluating whether a potential topic is practical, it is methodological, feasible, within the constraints of time. I mean, master's is 4 semesters. In a PhD, I think it's 8 semesters, right? So we need also to understand early topic selection. Without literature grounding often leads, without literature, because grounding often leads to theoretical, weak, and conceptually confused studies, right? So without doing the scoping review first of understanding what has been done, what are the gaps, what has been said, what is missing, we tend to come up with topics, research questions that are weak, problem statement that is weak, that cannot be defended, right? We can't defend our problem statement because it simply came out from the blue, right? Where we do not know where it came from, right? So in this particular presentation, we're going to do that and assist you so that you know exactly how you get to your topic, right? So after we've done the scoping review, we're going to move to identifying the research gap, right? This is the core of postgraduate skill. And it's a great thing that now we have generative AI tools that we have, because identifying a gap prior to the generative AI tools that we used to have, it would take ages, right? That's why we would see that you'd go for the whole year working on your proposal, a master's proposal, back and forth. Your problem is not strong. Your research gap is not well defined. But now with the demonstration that we're going to do, we're not going to hit around the bush, right? We're going to hit straight the nail in its head, because we're going to hit straight, drawing on the literature that we've gathered. And from that literature, we're going to identify through the scoping review, a quick scoping review, to identify exactly what is the gap, what is missing. And from that gap, we're going now then to develop the topic or the problem statement, the questions that we have. So identifying a research gap now guarantees that the proposed study will contribute to new knowledge, right? It will cover something that is missing. And we know that it's going to do that because we've already identified from the scoping review that we've done, right? So when the gap is identified, first, the topic is not arbitrary, right? If you identify a gap, the topic that comes out from this gap, from your study, is not arbitrarily, right, chosen. You didn't choose it by my mother told me to choose this one, right? But rather, it is directly derived from a demonstrated deficiency in the literature, right? So also clear identification of a gap now, then it will allow the researcher to now begin to formulate, right, answerable questions, answerable, precise, and research objectives that you can defend, that are speaking to what is not being done, right? So this process will allow us to remove and reduce the redundancy in research, specifically for masters and PhDs, where you do not regurgitate what has been done somewhere else, right? And as a result, when you want to report your contribution to knowledge, you don't know what contribution to knowledge is. Instead, you are hiding other studies that you are not citing because you've seen that the gap that you say you're trying to cover has already been covered, right? So this process now will assist us in that regard. So a well-defined research gap provides a strong academic justification for why the study must be conducted, right? Now, moving on after we've done the gap, from the gap to research questions and objectives, right? So the movement is like we're moving from the research gap, research question, research objectives, then ensure that this study is not interest driven but evidence driven, right? So if you're coming from positivism or from the interpretivism philosophy, you would understand that these questions around whether the study must be driven by is it interest driven, is it evidence driven, right? Is it theory driven? All those debates, right? So the presentation that we're going to do here, our questions and our objectives are going to be evidence driven because we are drawing them out from a scoping review that we've done, and that scoping review has identified gaps, and after that gap we have a problem, and now we're asking questions to answer the problem, right? So moving from an identified research gap to clearly articulated research questions and objectives is a very, very important and analytical process, that will ensure that we have rigor, our studies are good, our problem statement doesn't fall flat at a point or at a time where we need to defend it. But so what are we saying? We're saying once the gap has been identified, now it must be precisely defined, right? That's what we're going to do in the presentation, the demonstration, whether it is empirical, and this is what falls short in most master's studies and most PhD students struggle with, because they didn't begin with a scoping. Now they cannot really defend or explain what gap is their study covering, right? Is it a lack of data, right? A research gap is not always to say this study has not been done, right? You can do something that has been done, but right, the question is there is lack of data, right? The studies that were done, they were empirical studies, right? We need a thorough longitudinal study, therefore this study is justified. Or the studies that were done were theoretical studies, so there's insufficient conceptual explanation, right? Or the studies that were done, they lack methodological rigor, so we have limited approaches, they focused on quantitative, we need to bring in a mixed methods in that space. Or the contextual gap, right, where we say let's understand populations, sectors or regions in their specific areas. So those are the different gaps that you can identify, and we're going to identify these gaps using the AI tools that we're going to introduce. So translating the gap now, that gap that you've identified, it needs to be translated into a research problem, right? And we need to derive research questions from the gap and formulating research questions and objectives, right? So as we move towards the generative AI, I think this is my last slide before we get into the generative AI, the tools that we're going to look at, right? So I want to re-emphasize the issue of academic integrity and verification when we're using AI. We can never overemphasize. In our previous session last week, we mapped out the ethics university ethics and journal publication ethics. I think you need to go and watch that if you missed that one, right? Academic integrity requires that claims, arguments, and conclusions are grounded in verifiable and accurate represented sources, right? There needs to be verification of any output that comes out of generative AI. You need to verify. You need to verify and ensure that ideas, the data, theoretical contributions are properly attributed to their original sources. Because we know by now that generative AI, they hallucinate, right? They misplace sources. Sometimes they provide false information. So you need to make sure that whatever output that comes out of these platforms, you're actually verifying them. And this is what we mean by academic integrity. So yes, Let's move on to generative AI as we do the demonstration. So I want us by the end of this session for every one of us to have a topic, right? To have a brief problem statement, to have identified their gap, and after they've identified the gap, to have the 4 research questions and research objectives, right? Then we can make that or convert that into a concept note. But that's what we want to achieve in this in this presentation. We need to make sure that when we meet next week again, we are actually developing the literature review, building onto the from the research question, the topic that we've identified. But of course, you can always rewatch and learn the process as we go on, right? But before we go there, right, I want to introduce to you that we need to know what prompts are, right? You need to know what prompts are. We're going to do a session of training you on how to do prompts, generating prompts, and how to use prompts. But what before, for us to get the best results from each and every generative AI platform that we need to understand prompts and how to develop prompts. And there are 4 key things in a prompt that I think. The first one is the role. What is the role of what is the role of your AI? What is the task is it supposed to play? The format, do you want text? Do you want tables? Do you want blue points? Do you want graphs? Do you want a PDF? Do you want a Word document? What is the output that you're expecting? Then you need to draw the parameters, right? You need to draw the parameters, but relax, we'll take you through. Right, so I'm going to switch on to ChatGPT, and the reason why I'm choosing ChatGPT is because it's one of the most and widely used and also free platform that, even if you're not subscribed, you can do the demonstration. You can do or replicate what I've been doing. We don't want to flood ourselves with a lot of tools, right? You can use your Science Space, but you need to pay. You can use your Perplexity, but there are limitations. You can use your DeepSeek, there are limitations. You can replicate this process on any generative AI platform, but I elect to use ChatGPT in this time because I know that most users who are on free versions are on ChatGPT, right? And it produces not so good, but for starters, it is good. I'm using a subscribed version of ChatGPT, so there are more functions that I'll demonstrate for you that you actually get to learn there that otherwise you would not find on your free version, right? So I'm going to switch off my PowerPoint presentation, then I'm going to transfer you guys to my screen, and I want colleagues and the MNG to assist me and see if the screen is showing properly. Right, so thank you. So remember I showed you stages. So in this particular step, we're going to go through at least 7 stages, right? That we're going to go through, and I'm hoping that by 11 we should be done, right? I'm hoping that by 11 o'clock we should be done. So the first stage that we're gonna go through is that we need to get a reading list, right? We need to get a reading list that we need to have. We need to get a reading list. Um, we need to get a reading list that we need to have. So I will show you briefly how to get a reading list, right? And I'm going to use the most basic things that I'm going to use. Colleagues from MNG, I'm receiving a notification. Can you please assist to see what the problem is? There should be a problem. I don't want to get distracted. So right, so this is Google Scholar, right? This is my Google Scholar, and remember we said the first step that you need to do is that you need to clearly define or state your area of interest, right? So you need to clearly state your area of interest. So I'm saying my interest is I want to look at my interest is I want to look at I'm interested in the aspect of student perceptions on well-being and psychological support or interventions, right? I'm interested in looking at the different issues that affect students, right? Or I'm interested in the issues that affect students. Is it pertained to African spirituality? But I'm not really clear what I really want to achieve, right? I'm not really clear what I want to achieve in this study. Or I'm interested in my research area of interest. I'm interested in how the media report on women, right? So I'm in Google Scholar. The first step I'm going to reiterate, we want to identify or we want to clearly define our research area of interest, our research area of interest. So I'm saying my area of interest is women, how the media report on women, right? How the media report on women politicians. So I go to Google Scholar here, and I want to get that information or that studies that talk about the same study or the same things that I'm interested in. Right. So I'm saying I want to search. I want to compile a list of references or a list of citations that I will therefore upload on ChatGPT or on a platform or generative AI platform so that I can begin the process of a rapid scoping review to get to a topic. Right. So I'm saying my interest is in media reporting of women, right? Women politicians. Right. I just have, this is what interests me, right? I don't really know what exactly I want to study, but I have an interest. This is an area of interest, right? So I'm saying media reporting of women politicians, right? Or, right, I use media reporting, right, of women politicians. This should be a phrase, right? Or media coverage, right? Right, I'm searching, I'm using these keywords so that I can get all studies that focus on this, or I say media framing, right? Media framing, right? The idea is to, then I say, and so I'm interested in issues of how the media report women politicians, right? Then I'm saying in Africa, right? I'm interested in how the media report on women politicians in Africa. I'm interested in how women right. So this is my area of interest. If I click here on search, right? I'm not going to put any limitations here on the issue of page number of years of years since, or the year range. I'm not going to limit that. I'm just going to leave it like that. So I want to create that list of citations that I'm going to then do a rapid scoping review, right? So what I need to do for me to generate that list, I need to click save, right, on every article, right? And if when I click save, a page come here, a pop-out come here, then I need to create a folder. So this folder is women, right, politicians. Right, so I'm actually creating a database of my literature, women politicians, then I say done, right? So the moment I click save on the next article, it goes into that folder. So women politicians, then I click next, then I need around 10 to 15 articles that I'm going to look at so that I can see what has not been done and what has been done, right? But since we want to do a scoping review, let's just put a custom range of saying our custom range should be 2022, right? We want to look at studies that were done in 2022, right? We've already saved this one by Moringa, then we save another one here, right? We just want a few of them. We don't want to overload, but when you do it in your own space, you can actually do more, right? So this database, again, you can actually use it for your literature review. You don't need to go and search for literature for your literature review because you've already created it from the outset, right? So we are saving all these studies that are speaking to what we will do or what we are interested in. I'm saving all that, right? I save. And the most interesting thing that you're going to see or realize is that you're going to see that we have a list that we've created. So I'm going to the next page, right? I'm going to the next page, then I'm saying women leaders, women politicians, and I'm saving all that, right? I'm saving all that. Right, I think we've saved enough of work of literature that we've saved, right? We've saved enough literature, right? We've saved enough literature, but just at least 20 articles will do, right? So when I have saved all these studies that I've saved, if I go to my far right, I'm sure you're following. If I go to my far right, there's a section here that says library, right? I click library here. So these are the studies that I've saved, right? And if I click library, if I go to export all, right? I want to export all these studies into an Excel sheet or into a CSV file, right? So there's BBTeX, there's EndNote if you're using EndNote, there's Ref, but for the purpose of this presentation or for the purpose of what we're going to demonstrate, we need to save as a CSV file, right? So the moment I click CSV file, there's a pop out here that says export articles on this page. No, we want to export all articles in my library that we've gathered, right? We've gathered all. So we exporting here, right? Then we've exported that, right? Now it's giving us, let's give it a label. We're saying here that women politicians, right? We're giving it a name so that we don't mix it up. So I'm just going to save it in my downloads, right? Then there it is in my downloads, right? I want to show you how it looks. I'll show you how it looks quickly, right, as we proceed before we upload it, right? So that you can see how it looks. Right. Right. So when I've done the download, right, the download is there. I want now to begin those steps that I've told you, the 5 steps that I've told you to say, this is what we want to do. So we say the first step, we need to clearly define and state our research area, right, or what we're interested in. And we've already done that, and we have gathered literature enough to get that going, right? But now the most important thing that you need to understand is that you need to know the prompts to use, right? But let's begin by uploading. So that download that we've downloaded, we need to upload it, right, on ChatGPT. So I'm using Consensus on ChatGPT. If you're using, if you have ChatGPT, or if you're using ChatGPT, the subscribed one, there's Consensus. I prefer Consensus because it provides accurate citations, unlike other just general ChatGPT, right? So now the question is, we want to define the area or the broad area of interest, right? So the same area of interest that I spoke about, I'm going to repeat it again here. So I'm going to give ChatGPT and say, I have uploaded right. So the first thing that I'm doing here, I'm letting the platform, the generative AI, to say, I have an upload, right? And in this upload, there are studies, right? And there's literature that captures what I'm interested in, right? But the prompt I want to use here is that I'm at a postgraduate level. I do not really understand what topic I'm focusing on, right? So we're starting with the field, and this step will help you to understand the intellectual landscape you want to enter in. So we're allowing AI now, ChatGPT in this case, to help us to map the terrain, right? So it doesn't choose the topic for us. I want to emphasize this. It doesn't choose the topic for us. What we're simply doing is that we are using it to assist us to get to a topic that is evidence-based and that we can defend. So here is my prompt. I'm saying here, clarify the research area for me, right? I'm saying I am interested in researching about how the media report or frame women politicians in Africa. Right, that's my interest, but I do not have a topic. I don't have a gap. I don't have nothing, right? So now my prompt here, I'm saying clarify the research area. That's number one, right? I want the platform to clarify the research area now, right? And I'm saying number two, I'm saying number two, I'm saying, help me map this area by identifying these three things, right? Number one, I want to identify the core concepts and keywords, right? Key debates and tensions. You need to know the key debates and tensions that are happening in that area of field, right? Then I need discipline engaging within this area. Then number four, I need to understand the common theoretical perspective, right? And present this as a scoping map. Right now, this is what we want to do. So let's punch here and see what comes out. Right, so this here, if I open here, this is the sheet that the Excel sheet that I've downloaded for you from Google Scholar. This is how it looks, right? These are all the studies that came out. And so what we're doing, we're reviewing these studies, right? We're reviewing these studies. So this is my output. Let's go through it and see what comes out, right? So this kind of prompting, we call it iterative prompting, right? It's different from just going to ChatGPT and say, generating me a topic about A, B, C, and D. This topic now, it will be defensible because if you do this, you can explain and understand where your topic is coming from. So we're saying here below is a scoping map of the research area, media, reporting of framing of women politicians in Africa. So scoping map, it media framing of women politicians in Africa. So it's a core concepts and keywords, key ideas repeatedly used in this, used to study this area include: number one, media framing, visibility and symbolic, right? Gender stereotypes and patriarchy. So already I'm being given the key concepts in this area, right? These are the key things or the key themes that people are studying in this area. Right, then let's move on to the key debates, right? Then it's giving me, and I want you to see here that it's actually taking me from what, these are the citations, these are the studies that have done this, right? These are the key issues that are there. Then the key debates and tensions is visibility versus marginalization. Those who understand the topic will tell you, right? So research consistently debates whether increasing number of women in politics translate into fair media visibility, right? That's what it's showing now. It's showing us the key debates that are there right now, the discipline engaging with this area. It says this research area is interdisciplinary, drawing mainly on media communication studies, political science, gender, feminist, and African studies. So at this stage, you already know where your study is going to fit in. If you're doing this study for the purpose of application, now you need to look at your application, sending it in one of these areas, right? Common theoretical perspectives. Here, this section is important because you already having an idea of what theories to use, right? So it says framing theory, gender media theory, feminist theory, etc., etc. So what do we have now? What have we done? We have done a scoping to know, right, what is happening in around the area of study that I want to study. So this is here what we've done a scoping review. We've done a scoping of understanding what has been done, what are the key debates, what are the discipline, what are the common theoretical perspectives. So we have an idea of the theories, the debates and stuff like that. But let's move on to stage number 2. So stage number 2, it's a rapid in our stage number 2, right? We want to do the key mapping of existing research. Right now here, this is a rapid scoping exercise, not a full literature review. We don't want to do a full literature review. What we're simply doing is that we're asking what is already covered or well covered and where does the literature cluster. So we allow AI to accelerate this overview, but it does not replace the reading. So you're gonna still need to do the reading. But now what makes the difference is the kind of prompt that you're going to use, right? So I'm going to put a prompt here that says, so my prompt in this particular case would be, conduct a rapid scoping review or academic research, right, based on what we have done already, right? Based on what we've done already, I'm just going to refresh quickly because there seems to be a glitch up. I'm just going to refresh a bit. Yes, there you go. So this is now, so what we're saying, stage number 2, we want to do a rapid scoping exercise, right? Where we want to understand what is already well covered and where does the literature cluster. So my prompt in this particular case would be, conduct a scoping review, right? Conducting a scoping review on academic research on the topic, right? On the area above, right? And identify key themes, commonly studied populations, methods, dominant theories, and do not fabricate citations. Summarize patterns at a high level, right? This prompt here is a game changer because we are delimiting what should come out. What should come out from our scoping review. So we're saying do not fabricate sources. I want it to only focus on these sources that I've provided them. So when you do this, you will not have your hallucinations, right? Your platform, your chat GPT or generative AI will not hallucinate, right? So it says here, research on women politicians and media in Africa is moderate but growing, right? With a strong concentration in Anglophone countries, which is your American countries, print media and digital media, right? So the main thematic areas that are there is visibility, absence, right? Theme 2 is giving you an issue of gender. Theme 3 is giving you patriarchy. Theme 4 is giving you digital media. Theme 5 is giving you, right, all that intersectionality, right? Right. But here it's giving us commonly studied populations. And the reason why we're doing this exercise is we want to understand what has not been studied so that we can get a gap, so that we can bring in our study in them, right? So we're saying commonly studied populations, these are the populations that have been studied. So we're saying Nigeria is number one. Most studies are coming from Nigeria, followed by Kenya, followed by South Sudan, followed by Zimbabwe, followed by South Africa and Ghana, right? So already we know that the studies that are happening in here, but the most studies are coming from here, right? From these areas. Then you know whether you want to study in those some areas or whether you want to study it in a different area, right? Then here it tells you that political actors normally is female parliamentary candidates. Already there is a gap. We're looking at if we want to investigate women, right, we're seeing that most studies are focusing on parliamentary candidates or women presidents or women in decision making. So we're already seeing gaps already to say, oh, okay, I mean, if everybody is studying about women in parliament, then that means somebody must study about women in government or women in high profile positions or ministers or head of departments or directors, right, and how they are covered. So we already have an idea of what has been covered and what has not been covered, but we don't end there, right? So now what we want to do is we want to look at to move from mapping to contributions by identifying meaningful absence in the literature. Now we're moving towards a gap. We want to identify the research gap. And this is what distinguishes a good master's or PhD study. If your gap is not clarified, your PhD, your dissertation will fall flat. Your gap should be clarified. You need to have a clear gap that is well clarified. So a research gap is not, nothing has been done, like I've explained in the first segment of the presentation. It is what has been overlooked, right? Under theorized or taken for granted, right? So these steps now separates postgraduate work from undergraduate work, right? You coming in when you want to say, what is my contribution? What is the contribution of my study? If you're looking at psychology, if you're looking at African psychology, right? There's a lot of studies that have been done, but now the question is, what is it that your study is going to bring in? Right. So this is what we want to do, but we have a prompt. We need to know what to ask, what to prompt in. So we're saying we want to use the same scoping review that we've done to identify empirical, theoretical, methodological, and contextual gaps. Remember, in the first section of our PowerPoint presentation, we identify different gaps that we have. We say the first gap is a theoretical gap. The second gap is an empirical gap, where studies are limited in terms of what have been done, in terms of methodologies, methodological gap, in terms of contextual gap. The context is focusing specifically in South Africa or beyond South Africa. So now we need to get to a structured gap, right? This is where it gets interesting. So what we are doing now and what we want to achieve, we want now to develop a gap for our study. We want a gap, right? Because if we do not have a gap, right, we cannot come up with a study. We can't have a problem statement. We can't have questions. We can't have objectives, right? We can't have methodologies that will allow us to say this methodology here will assist us to get the data that will cover this gap or answer these research questions. So we now want to develop a gap. So I'm saying here, let's identify a gap. Right, let's identify a gap. Right, then I'm going to put my prompt here and say my prompt in this particular case, I'm saying I need to develop a structured gap, right? I need to develop a structured gap. That's what I need to do, right? So I'm saying using the scoping review findings that we've done above, right? So this is what we call iterative scoping, iterative prompting, right? In one of our sessions, we'll teach you how to do prompts to avoid hallucination and plagiarism, right? So we're doing this kind of prompting is called iterative prompting, right? Good for literature reviews and scoping reviews. So we're saying using the scoping review findings above, identify empirical, theoretical, methodological, and contextual gap and explain why each gap is significant, right? Then let's go. So we are doing now, we are at a stage of developing a gap, but we just don't want this platform or this generative AI to give us a gap that we do not know where the gap is coming from. Colleagues, this is what we call ethical use of generative AI so that you get credible and defensible gap, right? So the first gap that we have is a structure empirical gap, right? What has not been studied enough, right? So here we're saying there's an over concentration on elite and high profile women politicians. What is missing? I love this. It's giving us what is missing, evidence from existing research, and why this is significant. So it's saying what is missing is most studies focus on elite women, presidential candidates, parliamentary, national figures, while low-level women politicians. So there is a gap. That means that the study that I'm going to propose should focus rather on these kind of things that have not been done, right? So if you find yourself doing what has been done, right, there is a tendency of redundancy. There is a tendency of redundancy. You replicate what has already been done. And at PhD level, when you are done, the examiner will ask you, what really is your contribution? What have you contributed? And you will not know what you have contributed. So it's always important to lean towards what is missing, right? And by this process, we already know this is what is missing, right? Then we have evidence of what existing research has done. Studies in Nigeria, Kenya, South Sudan, Zimbabwe, primarily analyze national newspapers and high profile actors. Already we know that there is a high concentration of national newspapers and profile actors. So we know that the gap is in media platform, in digital media. Work has not been done, right, in these platforms. There's newspapers. So I need to lean towards studies that focus on digital platforms. So why is this gap significant? Local politics is where most African politicians. So here, this is a gap that you can just develop and put in your proposal, right? So you choose whether you want to focus on an empirical gap or you want to focus on limited audience gap, right? The second gap is limited audience. Then the theoretical gap is how the phenomenon is conceptualized, right? Now here we're looking at dominance of important Western gender theories, right? I love the study. I'll continue to give the use of one study that caught my interest and that excited me. When I was consulting with one student, when we're looking at the Western methodologies in therapy, the Western methodologies in assisting students in colleges in coping up with the stress, right? So you would find that one of the gap might be that there's a dominance of Western methodologies or Western ways of doing things. And that could be your gap, to say therapy is predominantly focusing on African or Western ways of doing things. And the gap that we need to cover is to looking at African epistemologies, African therapies, African ways of assisting, of therapies, of assisting students. So that could be your gap. That's a theoretical gap now, how the phenomenon is conceptualized, right? We're looking at under theorization, right? That there is not much theories, that the studies that were done, they didn't apply this kind of theories that I'm proposing. I'm proposing multicultural theories to this study. I'm proposing the Afrocentric theories of therapy into this study. So the studies that exist, the gap that is there is that this theory in African context, they have not been clearly theorized. So this study and this gap, therefore, should be explored, right? Then methodological gaps, we're saying there's heavily reliance on qualitative studies. Studies that are there are descriptive in nature, they are quantitative in nature. We do not know the phenomenon. We do not know the experiences of college students. We do not know the experience of TVET students as it regards to issues of therapy, of African therapy. What coping strategies are they using that are grounded within African epistemologies or African therapeutic approaches? So that now the methodologies that you're using, so you're saying there's a gap there, I want to fill in this gap using this study. So we're looking at limited engagement with media producers. Then contextual gap, you're looking at in colleges, in TVET colleges, studies like this have not been done. They've been done in universities, they've been done in high schools, but in TVET colleges, there is a missing, in the higher education, there is a missing link. So this study will actually come in handy to fill in this gap, right? So that's what we've done. We've developed a gap. So we have 4.2 gaps that we've identified through this stage, right? So you have those gaps. Now it's up to you in your study to say, which gap do I want to explore and which gap is more stronger that I should explore, right? Then you choose. And when you've chosen that gap, now you need to develop that gap. And it's a good thing that the platform that we're using is actually giving us citations. These citations here are not fabricated, or the ChatGPT is not hallucinating, because remember, I'm the one who has provided the citations to ChatGPT. So let's move on to our next step. Our next step is we draw closer to the end so that we can attract questions and engage questions, right? Right. I'm saying now, from these gaps that I have, I want to identify a gap which is most suitable for a master's or a PhD study, right? Right. Now I'm saying, now from the gaps above, right, from the gaps above, I want to select a defensible gap, right? From the identified gaps, right, which is most suitable for a master's and a PhD study, right? Explain the level of contributions for each, right? So what are we doing now? We are getting closer to say, I'm doing master's, I'm doing PhD. Which gap is more compounding and which gap should I follow through with, right? So it tells me here that most suitable gaps for master student, selected gaps, right? Master student, you need to have empirical gaps, right? Because there's limited research on how women politicians are framed. That's what it's telling me, that why is this game important? So most existing studies examine media framing, but you need to look at this, right? So it's saying I should follow the most suitable gap for me when I'm doing my master's is an empirical gap, right? Which looks at how women are actually done, right? And the expected outcome, it actually gives us an expected outcome. We say a master's thesis is expected to make a contextual and empirical contribution, not a theoretical breakthrough. So at a master's background, at a master's level, you need to look at context and empirical contributions, empirical findings, and looking at a context which might be a case study. That's what you're expected to do. We don't expect you to come up with a theoretical breakthrough. We don't want to expect you to come up with all those things that are outside the world. Then it says to me here, most suitable for PhD, right? It says select a gap. It's looking at a theoretical methodological gap. Right now here, where you're looking at the contribution of your study, and it says, why is this gap suitable for a study? It's looking at why it requires conceptual synthesis. You need to invite theoretical adaptations and development, right? And this gap is defensible because it is well documented. The contribution is clearly beyond replication. No one can replicate what has been done, and no one has done this before, right? So this at master's level, in a nutshell, we're saying it is always good to go through with an empirical extension, right? Look at an empirical gap that focus on a specific context, right? At a PhD level, now this is where you look at theoretical and methodological innovations, and this is the only way you can only bring in an original conceptual contribution. And what is happening in the next context is that as we go to the last section of our presentation, before we get to your final output. So we want to refine we want to now develop a problem statement, a research problem from this gap, right? So we have our gap. You choose which gap you want to, right? I can say now in one paragraph, right? The right. So what am I doing now? I'm test running to see what gap I'm gonna have, right? What gap I'm gonna have and what the gap is going to be looking like, right? After we've done what we've done, before we move on to your problem statement. So it says to me here, despite a growing board of scholarship on media framing of women politicians in Africa, the literature remained theoretically constrained by a heavily reliance on Western feminist media theories and generic framing models, which insufficiently account for African social, political, cultural, and epistemic context, right? I love this, right? I'm not going to read all of it, but if my student would submit this to me, right, and they can able to defend how they got to this gap, right, I will not penalize them for anything, right? I will not penalize them for anything. I will not have a problem with them for anything, because this gap here is not coming from the generative AI of the platform, but it is AI assisted. I mean, those who didn't attend our session last week, you might need to go back and look at it, the difference between AI generated and AI assisted. So with regard to this gap here as AI assisted, why is it AI assisted? Is because it's not coming out from the platform itself, but it is coming out from me as a researcher guiding the platform to get to where I want to get. So it's a vehicle that is taking me to where I want to get to. So this gap here is a very good gap because it is capturing the theoretical gap that I need for a study. I mean, you can go on and develop this gap. Maybe your supervisor wants 2 pages of the gap, or they want 5 pages of the gap. You can bring in commands to say, I want APA, or I want what. But this gap already captures what is required for a PhD student in a proposal or in a thesis, right? This gap here is defensible. If your supervisor questions your gap, you say, this is how I've got to my gap, right? But the gap is not the end. We now need to develop a problem statement, right? Students struggle with a problem statement. Students, masters, especially masters and PhD students, they struggle with the problem statement, right? So we need to develop a problem statement. The problem statement that we're developing it from the gap that we've identified, right? So the problem statement should answer the question, what is the problem? Why is it a problem? What do we know about the problem? What has been studied about the problem? What happens if the problem is not solved? All those questions, those are the questions that you need to have in mind and to answer when you are integrating or engaging with this platform. So as usual, I have my prompts and my templates already prepared. So your problem statement is your academic argument for existence, right? So if this section is weak, if your problem statement is weak, your supervisor and the examiner will not be convinced that this study is important, right? Regardless of how interesting the topic is. You might be investigating anything that is outside of this world, or you want to invent another wheel or whatever. But if your problem statement is weak, right, the supervisor or the examiner will send you back 100 times. The problem statement should draw from the gap, whatever the theoretical gap, the empirical gap, but it should draw from the gap and should be grounded within what has been done. And therefore, this is the problem, right? So now, let's define a problem, right? We want to say here to the platform, using the selected research gap, draft a problem statement explaining what is known, what is missing, and why the gap matters academically and why it matters socially or professionally. Just quickly and see. So now we're developing our research problem, right? This is our problem that we're developing. You can always come up with other commands or prompts to say, I want my literature to, I want my my citations to look like this. I want my sentence construction to look like this. But this gap here is a very good, this research problem is a very good research problem because it's grounded in the gap, right? So we have moved from an idea, now we have a problem statement, we have a gap. We have a problem statement. And I love this platform, ChatGPT, because it asks you the second question. It says, do you want to condense this into a problem statement, purpose statement pair? Do you want to align it explicitly with the research question and objectives, or rewrite it to match your university proposal template? I love this one. Right. So if you have a research proposal, or if you have a research proposal template, of which one of these days we will do the UJE research proposal template, we will do the Mancosa proposal template, we will do the UKZN and complete it on one go. We'll do that in one of our sessions and complete it in one go, right, in 1 hour session. So if you have a template, then this is an opportunity for you to upload the template or copy and paste the template and say, align my research problem statement with what is expected with these templates, right? Already that will make life easy for you so that you know you are aligned with the university template, right? So I have a problem statement that I have, but I still want to refine it a little bit, right? The reason why I want to refine it is because I want to critically review the problem statement and identify vague languages, overly broad claims or misaligned with things that are going to make my research problem not sound good and not strong, right? So my prompt here is, I want to refine my problem statement. So I'm simply going to say here, refine, critically review the problem statement, identify vague language, overly broad claims, or misalignment with the research gap, and suggest a refined version, right? Now, this is refining it to the level at which I want it to be. So below is a critical reviewed, right? Now, I'm reviewing my own work. I'm using ChatGPT to review what I've already done. So it's saying critical review. Vague or over general language, existing scholarship is established, right? It says here, the moment you use this statement here, you need to provide citations, right? So because this is vague, right? So I'm reviewing what ChatGPT has done with the same platform, right? So that I can enhance. Look at the difference between the first output. I want you to look at the citations, how they look here in the first output, and now how they look in the second output. Right, look at how they look. This is a refined way. This is a refined one. Now, this one is getting closer to perfection, even though there is no perfection. It's an elusive, right, concept, right? So you are getting closer to a refined problem statement. It still asks me questions. You want to tighter casual language, clear theoretical targets, reduce overreach, direct alignment, reduce these 250 words for a PhD proposal, etc., etc. The choice is yours, right? You can always come back and refine it and do whatever you want to do. So what we want to do now, your topic should immediately tell the reader what the study is about, right? Now, what we want to do, remember from the beginning, we do not have a research topic, right? We don't have a topic as yet. We don't know what the topic is, right? What we do have is we did a scoping review. We have the gap, we have the problem statement. So what we need to do now is we want to generate a topic. So your topic should immediately tell the reader what the study is all about, where it is located, what KP addresses. If it sounds like a news headline or report, it's not yet a research topic. So what are we doing? So we want to generate a research topic. So that's our next step. So we're using the gap or the problem statement to generate a research topic. I mean, other scholars would prefer to start with questions first before they go to the topic, but I want us to speed the process. Now we want a research topic. We want at least, right, 3 to 4 topics, right, to choose from. Right, we want 3 to 4 topics to choose from. Let's see what we have, right? Right, so we have this topic. So the reason why we prefer, us as supervisors, as academics, we prefer this approach of getting to your research topic is because this topic is emanating from a scoping review. It's emanating from a process, it's evidence-based. It's not just coming out from the blue. It's coming from the literature, from evidence, from a problem statement, from a gap. So I have 3 topics that I have. Now the responsibility is on me. All these topics are talking about the same thing, but the responsibility is on me to choose the best topic. I have 1 topic and they're saying why this matters, why this work. This section is important when you get to meet your supervisor, right, with this topic. Your supervisor will ask you, why is your topic important? Where did you get the topic? How did you get to the topic? When you ask the question, how did you get to the topic? You go back to the problem statement. You go back to the gap, right? You go back to the theoretical gap. You need to explain the theoretical gap and understand that this is what literature has done. This is what is missing, and this is how we can we can get to the process, right? Now, I want to say, I want to evaluate the topics that I have, right? Now we're saying evaluate the topics and see which topic is the best topic. The prompts I'm going to use, evaluate the topics. Just saying evaluate the topics, identify which is most defensible academically, which is too broad, and which best signal a contribution to knowledge, right? I'm having an iterative prompting process, right? Then I'm given topic number 2 as the most academically defensive topic, right? Then topic number 1 has problems. Topic number 2 is good, but the best topic that I'm being given here in the justification is it is problem driven. It aligns problem well with the problem statement. It signals theoretical contribution, and it substantiates theoretical advancement. And this is the topic that therefore we go with. So after, when this topic is done, we know that I have a topic. After the topic is done, bear in mind that we do not have research questions and objectives. So we say now from this, everything that we've done, right? Everything that we've done so far. So we have chosen question number 2, right? Our topic number 2. Now I want research questions, right? I want 3 to 4 research questions, right? Then I say research using the selected topic, right? We've already selected such topic and problem statement. Develop a central research question and 3 to 4 sub-questions. Ensure they're analytical, non-binary, and appropriate for postgraduate research. Now, we are getting our research questions and topics that are embedded within the literature, the problem statement, and everything that we've done. The reason why I prefer this approach is we have a question here. And when you sit down with your supervisor, you can explain that this question established the empirical grounding needed for theoretical explanation. You can explain it creates space for theoretical interrogation. You can explain what these questions are about. But here is your central question that you have, that this study seeks to examine A, B, C, and D. Right, you know that we don't end with question, right? Now, I want to use the same platform to assess whether these questions are still fine. And I'm saying to this platform, critically assess the research questions for ambiguity, overlap, and misalignment with the research gap. Propose refined versions. The problem we find a lot of times with masters and PhD students is that most of the topics are ambiguous. They are vague. You don't know, the questions are ambiguous. You don't know what the student wants to ask. You don't know what is expected there. So this stage here is actually going to give us refined questions that are defensible before the supervisors and before the examiners. And this is very important because nowadays there is a viva voce that is required for you to do. Right. So these are the questions that I have, and these are the questions. So what I'm going to be doing is just to transfer these questions and see what I'm going to be doing with it. So this is actually a reading process. Those who argue that generative AI encourages lazy thinking, I think by now we've demystified that concept, because what we're simply doing, we're actually engaging with the platform, right? It gives you here a summary of key problems identified. Now you know the problems that are identified within the first questions that we have, until we get to these final questions. These are the final reformed questions. Why the refined set in stronger? Then this here will give you an answer that you defend the questions that you have. But what we need to do now, we need to convert these questions into objectives. So we're simply going to say, convert these questions into objectives. Then we have our objectives. You know that objectives and questions, they work hand in hand. Our first objective must speak the same things that the first question is talking about. And this is what we call iterative prompting, where you develop your research questions and writing your problem statement, topic, and stuff like that. So you might want to say, I want to see the final thing, right? Then I'll say in 1,000 words, in 1,000 words, now provide the final version of topic, right? Research gap, problem statement, key questions, and the objectives, right? And the objectives. Make sure you cite the right. So in iterative, it's always good to avoid hallucinations, right? When you're doing prompting in ChatGPT, it's always good to always give the parameters of what should be included and what should not be included. Here, I want to go back and take that same download again to make the final output, right? Because we have done a lot of work already on this platform, it might begin to hallucinate. So I want to go back to this, right? Attached. I'm saying use APA citations, right? Citations. Then I give an example. I say author, yeah, right? Author, yeah, right? That's what we do. Then let's see, we just say 1,000 words is fine, right? What are the things? Don't hallucinate, right? Focus on information that we developed in this chart, right? Don't bring in new citations or information. Right, so we want to have an idea of what the final output might look like, right? Proposed title, we have a proposed title here. This is our proposed title, Examining Media Framing of Women Politicians in Africa Towards a Context-Sensitive Afrocentric Feminist Theory, right? So remember, this is a PhD study. We are developing a theory and our contribution is a contribution to the theory, right? So we have our research gap, right? This is our gap that we have, and we have our research problem statement. Citations are good, everything is verified because we have limited them to this, what we've provided them, right? Then we have our central question, how can media framing of women in selected African countries, etc. These are our questions, these are our objectives, right? This is the concluding note. So this is our final output of everything that we've done in this presentation. The reason why this iterative kind of prompting to develop your topic, your research gap, your research problem is important and is most preferred for is that it's defensible. I know if you're studying at UKZN, if you're doing a PhD, you might be required or requested to provide the template or the sheet of what you have done with AI when you developed your work. So because you can just copy and paste all this process and you attach an addendum or to your study, or if somebody questions you to say your work has been AI generated, you can just simply provide the evidence of all the steps that you've done. Colleagues, this is what we regard to as AI assisted way of developing your problem statement, your topic, your research gap, and your questions. It's different from you coming to a platform and just saying, develop a topic for me. So this, what we've developed is grounded in evidence. It's grounded in empirical research that we've uploaded. But remember, in our slide presentation, I say academic integrity is very key and human judgment. What you need to go and do is to read through everything and verify the sources if they are accurate, and if what is said here is coming really from these sources, and what all these, and update the citations maybe to 2023. But human judgment is very key when you're dealing with AI, so that you do not mislead yourself. So you need to go and verify after you have this final product to make sure that everything that the platform is produced for you is accurate and it is indeed genuine and it's not plagiarized. Right, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues from wherever you are, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking time to follow us on this platform on our Saturday series. With that, this marks the end of my presentation. So we're going to be opening up to your questions and answers. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Dr. Moringa. We're going to open now the floor to questions and hear what you guys think about our presentation. Right. So, yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to allow remarks first from Jolo. Right. There's a hand up from Makanjolo. You can go ahead. Was that a hand?
Good morning, Doctor.
Yeah, morning, sir. How are you?
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. It's
Appreciate
well
it.
and enlightened. Sir, how many words are adequate for statement of problem? That's number one. Number two, will you help us with the prompts material? Will you give it to us?
Okay, great. So the question, okay, I'll respond now. The first question is how many words are required for a problem statement, right? Look, it depends with the university guidelines. Each and every university, like I've already promised that we're going to have weekly sessions where we'll focus on the UKZN template. We'll focus each and every institutional template so that we can see what needs there. I know for the UKZN template, I think it's 250 words for a problem statement. I'm not sure for UJ, I'm not sure for other institutions. So there is no set standard, there is no set number of words for a problem statement. But normally I, as a supervisor, as long as your problem state, I mean, it doesn't have to be long for it to be convincing me that there's a problem, right? It can be 150 words, right? But if it captures the problem, why is that a problem? How is it a problem? What do we know about the problem? Who has contributed to the problem? What happens if the problem is not solved? If all those fundamentals are captured, I will be fine to go with 150 words, right? But because we human, we write, you might be writing up and down, missing the point. So you might get to a page of problem statement. But I question you, I'll have problems with you if you give me 2 pages of a problem statement. 1 page, maybe we can accept, but like the problem is too big enough for you to capture it in 1 page. So I think 300 max should be fine, but depends with your supervisor, what your supervisor wants, right? So these prompts here, remember that we are doing a free version, right? This is a free workshop, right? So the material won't be provided. The material is provided in our master classes, where the master classes that are paid for, that's where we give you the package of all the prompts that you need. So these ones, they won't be available for free, only for the paid versions of our workshops, right? Normally, that's where we give you a handbook of prompts to use to get to where we've got to. Right. So then let's move on. There's a hand from Tabitha Grace.
Okay, sorry, sir. Sorry.
Okay. Before you go, Tabitha, let's hear from Makunjualo. Yeah.
You just mentioned paid fashion. So how do we assess that?
Your paid session, right? Since you are on our database now, you receive a notification for our paid session. When will it happening? We'll give you a notification on when the paid session is. The master classes will happen. So in this master class, we'll have in-depth, right? We'll go for 3 hours. We'll give you the prompts. We'll give you the examples of what we've been done, and we'll give you the recordings. We'll give you all that. So we'll let you know when the master class is. We'll give you communication. But for now, keep attending the Saturday free ones, because you actually get a lot of information for free. Every Saturday until the 27th of June, we'll be doing these sessions for free.
Thank you.
Right. Let's hear from Tabitha.
Doc, thank you so much for this very informative presentation.
It's a pleasure.
I think I have been answered partly. I wanted to request for the recording, but I have been answered.
Well, the recording is available for free. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. So the recording you have for free.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, so you can go back and watch and replicate and copy the prompts and stuff. What we're not going to provide is our handbook of prompts, because these prompts that I was using, they're coming from a handbook, right? So we won't provide that for free. But if you want to go and replicate everything we did, I'm sure most people missed the first session of the presentation, because the first present was basically on a PowerPoint presentation, right, where I set the ground and the foundation for what we're going to do. So it's very important for you to go back and watch that presentation from the beginning, so that you understand. It's available on YouTube and it's available on Facebook, so you can go back and watch. What is not going to be provided is the prompts, right? That's not going to be provided for. But thank you so much for the feedback. Simi, yes.
Doc, you said the handbook is not provided for free.
Yes.
If someone wants to buy it, can they buy it now? Or you're waiting for the master class?
Right. So what we do is that we do the master class, then it comes as a package, because it won't, it's not, I would say to sell it for you, it will be more expensive for you to get it without you attending the masterclass. You get it. So it's better for you to come into a masterclass, then that becomes a free gift to you, right? So the masterclass it's almost the same price as the masterclass.
Okay. The
So
reason
I think-
why,
Yes.
the reason why I was saying it is that this is the period when students are beginning.
Yes, I understand.
So, yeah, so this will guide the students as they
Mhm.
develop,
Yeah,
rather
that's
than waiting for June. But
Yes.
anyway, if it's not possible, it's fine. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
Well,
Anyway,
thank you. So yeah, I hear where you're coming from. What we do private sessions, right, and consultations with those who want assistance with AI and writing with AI. So we do those sessions with you, and in those sessions also when we give you. So if we are consulting about your literature review, right, we give you a specific portion of prompts for the literature review to use for, right?
Okay.
Not the entire handbook, right?
okay.
Because that is gold. That is really gold. If we give it out, there, then I mean, you would understand prompt engineering is a growing field, and we haven't had in higher education prompts for what we do in research. And I think us as AfriLeader, I would love to believe, I don't know what others are doing, that we are pioneers in terms of developing these prompts. So we don't want to put our work out there only to find people replicating it. So we keep it to our heart. But yeah. So, but come for consultation. Then we'll have you walk away with something.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, there is a hand from Simi.
Thank you, Dr. Morenga. Good morning
Yes.
to everybody. Dr. Morenga, before I go to my question or my comment, I
Yes.
just want to indicate that I agree with all others who have spoken before me to say you are doing a great job. These kind of presentations, even if you can stretch them for 3 hours, you still have 100 people in attendance. The question that I have, most of us or some of us have already submitted a research proposal. We've already submitted, or those research proposals, they've already been sort of marked by our supervisors. You had a one-on-one discussion with the supervisor, you refine your topic, and now you are at a stage whereby your research proposal has been submitted to the higher degrees committee of the university. In that case, how can you assist when a student has gone that far? Thank you.
Right. So you would understand that the proposal stage is only the beginning stage of the whole 5 years or 4 years of PhD or 2 years of masters, right? The journey is actually, it begins when you want to sit down and bring together the literature review. So we do assist in every stage of the research process, right? So we are starting from the beginning now to give you ideas on the problem statement, topic, etc., right? But as we go deeper, we sit down with you, we develop a literature review with you, right? We say this is how to search for the literature. I mean, you understand that I did a demonstration of Google Scholar for how to source literature from Google Scholar. We do that with our clients. Sit down with you, help you search that literature, gather that literature, right? Sit down with you, demonstrate with you, give you the prompts to say, what do you want to get out of this literature that you've gathered? So basically, we are saying the whole process of the research process, right? There is a prompt for every research process. There's prompt for literature review, there's prompt for, you name it, right? and there is a tool for each and everything. I will tell you that there's consensus if you've used it, there's Sciencebase if you've used it. All those tools are there to assist us, but most people do not use those, do not know about those platforms. And that's what we do in the research process. On our cohort, I mean, or the 600 students that I've said, 600 researchers that I've mentioned when I started, that I've trained already, right? We've sat down with those people. You know, we do every day sit down with those people online and do the process with them to say, this is how you get to a credible literature review. This is how you look at the methodology for your study, right? This is how you develop the methodologies. These are the prompts that you need. This is the kind of searches that you need to do. So we actually the partner in research for every stage of your master's or PhD student, PhD process journey. We do every stage. So we don't end by the problem statement. So if you're done with your proposal, congratulations to you, right? Come back to us or attend these sessions where we will be doing, I mean, our next session next week, Saturday, is to teach you how to do prompts, right? So we'll be doing prompt engineering with you for research, not just prompts, you know, prompt engineering for literature review, right? And how to do prompting to avoid hallucinations and fake citations. That's what we're going to be demonstrating next week. So that is very helpful for even everyone, somebody who is doing their data analysis. So we'll take you through that. Thank you so much for that question. I hope I've answered you. Let's hear Sandile Gumede. Sandile, yes.
Yes, Amir. Good day, Doc, and to my colleagues. Doc, once again, let me appreciate the informative presentation. It is appreciated.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you. I am still a too quiet guy, where I will draft my ideas. But now, can I feed the AI to rewrite my content, to say, AI, please rewrite to make sense? If I am happy, is this not going to affect the Turnitin percentage? Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. That is a great question there. So you can refine your ideas using AI, right? That will make it AI assisted content, right? Last week in our presentation, if you go and watch our presentation from last week, you'd get an idea of the distinction between AI assisted and AI generated and the problems that there is. Right. So one would say, yes, I don't have a problem with you because it's the ideas, your ideas that are being refined with AI. After all, that's what the purpose of AI is, to refine our ideas. I mean, you still maintain the intellectual property and the originality of the ideas, just that you're using this platform to extend what you would otherwise have struggled with in that regard. So that won't be a problem, but somebody will have a problem with you who believes that AI should be highlighted using AI detectors, all right? And that's where the problem is, to say, if you refine your ideas with AI platform, then somebody puts those ideas on AI, whatever output on a detector, then it picks up 100%, right? Then you have a problem there, right? Because they believe that this is AI generated, but disregarding that the ideas that you put in there were yours. So they were just refined with AI. So it's always good to be in conversation with your supervisor, right? Be in conversation with your supervisor as to the parameters of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, right? But I'll tell you that anything that is refined with AI doesn't belong to AI. It's my work. I refined it, right? That's me. Whether you pick up your 100% AI detection there, I don't really care about it. What I did is that I had my ideas that I had and I refined them through using AI, and I can prove to you that this is what I did. right? I had this rough draft that I had that I fine-tuned on what more of editing. You can edit your work and it can turn to AI. But this conversation we had last week, so if you watch our presentation for last week, it'll give you some good ideas in terms of ethics of writing using AI. We covered that at length. So I encourage you to go and get acquaintance with that one. That will help you a lot, so much. Right. So
Thank you. Thank you,
yes,
Doc.
yes. I'm just checking if we have any comments. Any comments?
Yes, good morning, Doc. Apologies to interject while I'm speaking.
Not a problem.
However, I just wanted to confirm now that you have mentioned that we should go back and check the video of last week.
Yes.
We were just introduced to this platform now. I just wanted to find out where can we find it under your name or where specifically, so that one can acclimatize himself with it.
All
So
right.
that I can
Yes. So this one here is not under my name. I'm working for. I'm a founding member of the organization called Afri Leaders in AI, but the streaming and administration of this the series is done by MNG Research. So if you go to MNG Research platforms, I think they've already been shared in the group, right? MNG platforms the sessions are powered and are funded by MNG Research. Somebody might ask themselves, why is this gentleman doing this for free? Right. So this is brought to you by MNG Research. It's not for free, actually. Somebody's paying this for. Right. So it's Afri Leaders in conjunction or in collaboration with MNG Research. So if you want to watch the previous stuff, it's available on MNG Research platforms, YouTube, and you can connect them on WhatsApp, and you can also get them on Facebook and their website, MNG Research. But AfriLeader has its own website and stuff if you want to see more services that we do in AfriLeaders. But I hope that I've answered your question. If you want private engagements, you can send an email to MNG Research Info and stuff, and they'll facilitate that whole process to take place. Right, Augustine Ofori, Fari. Augustine.
Okay, thank you, Doc, for this insightful presentation. I would like to ask further upon the response you gave in terms of using AI to assist in your study or generating an idea. I'm looking at the possibility of, is it possible to reference them as you have for other peer-reviewed journals? Once you use them, you have to reference them. So
Right.
in using AI to assist you in generating or helping you come up with ideas, is it right to reference them?
Right. No,
Thank
so the answer is no, right? You cannot reference ChatGPT, right? It cannot be listed as a co-author, right? You cannot list a platform, a generative AI as a co-author. Rather, what you need to do in your methodology, you need to explain how and what and which platform you used and what role did it play, right? And when you've explained that, you need to emphasize the importance of human judgment to say, despite this is what I've used ChatGPT 5.2 to generate all the tables in my document, right? And I ensure that the integrity is maintained by human judgment. I made sure that I verified all information for purposes of academic and integrity. Right, no data has been fabricated, no data was falsified using the platforms. So that's the declaration that you need to do. So in your declaration, you need to have a declaration. After the declaration, in your methodology, you can also have a section that explains that information, right? That needs to be clarified. But the question you're asking again, we discussed ethics of AI last week. Right. So if you go and watch the previous one, it will give you, it will set you apart. It will set you apart. It will push you ahead. It will push you ahead in terms of your declaration and the parameters of using AI, doing your research work. So get yourself some time and go and watch that too. How much is ChatGPT paid for? It depends. I don't really know how much it is paid for now. I subscribed long time ago, but I think it depends with what option you need, what package you need. I think if you just click on upgrade ChatGPT, it will give you those options and see how much you want to budget for. Right. Any other questions? Any other questions? Any questions? Any questions? There's Mvalo. Mvalo was at a hand. No questions. All right. I'm going to hand over to the colleagues. My colleague from MNG.
Sorry, Doc.
Yes, Dr. Simi. Yes, go ahead.
I'm still Mr. Sen. Sorry, Doc. It's just an information sharing with everybody in this platform because the purpose of these engagements is for all of us to finish our master's, PhD, and become researchers. So I'll want to share information that for UKZN as well as for UNISA, there are sessions similar to this one, which looks at different topics. It's worthy attending. It enhances your opportunity to be able to finalize your study or your research. So there are several WhatsApp groups where this session I'm attending now was shared, and other sessions are shared. Even when students in Zambia are defending their PhD, they share such links so that you watch other students defending their topics and so forth. Thank you very much, Doc.
All right, thank you so much for that. I think that's very important. These engagements, they need to, I think, have a lot of people attending from different fields and disciplines so that we can actually get to know what other peoples are doing. That's very important. If there's nothing else, or if there are no comments or questions from the colleagues joining in now, I'm going to hand over to my colleague from MNG Research to just give the final remarks, then we call it a day. Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doc, for the powerful and interesting presentation. And I just want to thank each and every person for attending. And one more time, I want to encourage you to subscribe on our YouTube, to subscribe on our Facebook for more details and information. Thank you once again for your time. Have a blessed day. And thanks to you, Dr. Mringa, for availing yourself and making this program a success.
It's a pleasure, sir. Let's call it a day. We'll meet again next week, Saturday at 10 o'clock at the same time. Next week, we're doing prompts. How to prompt to avoid hallucinations and avoid falsification of citations and data on generative AI. Don't miss this one. This will be a game changer. Spread the word and share it within your networks so that we can get as much engagement as we want in terms of how can we enhance the research process using the AI tools. Thank you so much from Durban, Afri Leaders in AI and MNG Research. Thank you so much for funding this project. We'll see you next week and same time and same place. Thank you. Have a good weekend.